Okay, everybody. So the three pillars of image quality are resolution, sharpness, saturation, color, and contrast. And so for a lens to be really excellent, it has to do pretty well in all three areas. Now, the German lenses used to be known for being more contrasty and less resolution. And the Japanese lenses used to be known for having more resolution and less contrast. But I'm talking 40 years ago. So, but just to show you that there's a little bit of a fudge factor. Now, not just a fudge factor, it's like you can increase contrast, but you can't have everything all at once. You either it's when you design a lens, it's a choice, and you compromise. And so the engineers lean one way or lean the other way. Nowadays, though, modern lenses, I'm not so sure. I mean, I'm seeing lenses that are outstanding in all three categories, which is just really the lenses. Some of the lenses we have today are the best there are that have been made to this point. The lens in question, so Galen Rowell said that he could do 90% of his work with a 24 millimeter and an 85 millimeter. And his favorite was the 24 millimeter AIS Nikkor, or AI Nikkor, and the 85 f2. Those were his two favorite lenses. So today we're talking about the 16 millimeter Fuji lens, and that's not it. That's a 16 millimeter Fuji lens and a 35 millimeter f2 Fuji lens. But this 16 millimeter f2.8 Fuji lens, and let me just say right off the bat, first of all, it has all three attributes. It's sharp, it's contrasty, and it has wonderful color saturation. It is one of my favorite lenses. And it's absolutely teeny tiny, and it's 16 millimeter, which on APS-C is a 24 millimeter full frame equivalent. Galen Rowell would have been very happy with this lens if he shot Fuji APS-C. This whole video, all the images that you see in this video and all the video that you see in this video is shot with the X-T4. With the exception of me talking right here, right now, that's the lens I'm using obviously is not my 16 because I'm holding that in my hand. Is the 23 millimeter f2 Fuji Cron. And why they call it a Cron, why they call them the Fuji Crons, it's kind of a joke because Leica had the Summicrons, which were, if you've ever held a 50 millimeter f2 Summicron, it's that small. They're very similar to the Fuji, these little Fuji lenses, these little Fuji primes that they've come out. So people coined the term Fuji Crons, and that comes from a comparison with Leica. So this whole video was shot with all the other images, and the video that you see was shot with this 16 millimeter on the X-T4, except for me talking here, like I said, which is the 23 millimeter f2. Pardon me. So I have had this lens since maybe end of last year, 2020, maybe middle of last year, 2020. But I only really took it out and used it for the first time in my trip to Zion. And in that trip to Zion, it really stood out as an exceptional lens. As a matter of fact, I would rate this as an epic lens. It's one of my best lenses, and it's a go-to lens. But let's talk about, so that's the review right there. As good as it gets. But let's talk about the minor details here, the little itty-bitty details. So first of all, a B+W XS Pro 007 nano filter lives, clear filter lives on the front of this lens all the time. I like the XS Pros for wide angles and pretty much for all my lenses because they're very thin, which is great. And that stays on there 99% of the time. But that lens is absolutely tiny. The only lens that is comparable to this lens is the Pentax 15 millimeter limited, the DA HD. That lens is screw drive and noisy. And this lens is a very fast autofocus. It's weather resistant, and it works great for video. And it's pretty much my field lens for video on the XT4. And I also took in Zion, I took a bunch of snaps while I was walking around, and I'll roll some of those in here, and you can see. So it's a wonderful prime lens for stills, and it's my go-to in the field vlogging video camera. It really video lens. So this is a main workhorse lens for me, and I couldn't be happier with its performance. It is so it's an XF 16 millimeter 2.8 R WR, and the R means that it has an aperture ring, and it's actually a marked aperture ring. So you can set this to f8 if you want, or wherever you want to set it. You can set it to 2.8, or you can set it to the A, and you're away with the mixer. So so it does not have the locking aperture like the new WR 10 to 24 OIS lens, which is I'm really happy to see they're finally putting locks on their lenses. But this is great, and it is a WR lens. Fuji does not make any claims for their weather resistance. In other words, they don't have any internationally certified labels for what kind of weather resistance certification they have. They don't have that. It's just, the Fuji claiming that they're weather resistant. Now, some camera companies, so basically it's a wishful thinking on the part of the camera companies, unless like Olympus, they actually have a certification and a rating. Now, having said that, there's Pentax, and everybody knows that the Pentax weather resistance is no joke. Okay, there's many videos online of people dumping all kinds of garbage, dust and sand, and taking them in the shower and cleaning them off and all that kind of thing on your Pentaxes. So I would say I feel very confident with Pentax's claim of weather sealing, even though that or weather resistance, even though that there's no specific specification. I'm very comfortable with Olympus's because it actually has a specification. You know exactly what you should be able to do to an Olympus camera and not have a problem. Now, Canon, Nikon, and Fuji, I would lump Fuji in with, this is just anecdotal, but it's, rule of thumb that I use. That might be helpful to somebody. I lump Fuji, Nikon, and Canon all in the same boat. Imaging Resource did a test where they tested weather resistance between Canon, Nikon, and Sony, which was interesting. And the Canons and the Nikons did great. Sony did not do so great. But I would put Fuji up there with Canon and Nikon. It's decent weather sealing, okay? The only real standout that camera company that has a reputation for claiming weather sealing and their cameras actually suck for weather sealing is Sony. I would not get a Sony camera wet in any way, shape, or form. So that's just the reputation that the companies have and their claims of weather. And they all claim pretty much the same thing, except for Olympus, who actually sticks a label on it and says our cameras will do this, and they've been tested. But there it is. So that's weather resistant. So I'm happy that it's there. I think it's great. I think it's a great thing to have. This lens is absolutely tiny, and like I said, when I'm in the field on a landscape adventure, this lens is my video lens on my XT4, and I'm using my XT3 for stills. However, having said that, it does double duty when I'm home because it goes in my everyday carry bag with my X Pro 3 or my XE3, and I carry the 16, the 35, sometimes the 23, but mostly the 35, and the 50. And the XC3 would be my lightweight kit, and the X Pro 3 would be my more serious kit. But that's my everyday carry regimen there. And so really, really useful lens to have. And I'm very happy I have it. And like I said, lenses fall into 4 categories for me: bad, good, great, and epic. And so this lens gets 4 out of 4 stars, which is the highest rating I can give it. I give it an epic rating. It really is a great lens. Talking about the nitty gritty though, it's a little soft at 2.8. I can't even say that. What I can say is it's extremely sharp out to the corners at f5.6. It's not as sharp out to the corners at f2.8. I'm not even going to say it's soft at f2.8. It's just not as good as it is at f5.6. If you really have a need for shooting, f1.4, f1.8, f2, f2.8, and you want it really tack sharp, well, Fuji's got you covered. They make the $1,000 16 millimeter f1.4, and that's the lens you want to get. If that's not your bag though, and you don't mind shooting at 2.8 and having corners just not as sharp as at f5.6, then this $400 Fuji lens is the one you want. It's also lighter. The autofocus is much faster than compared to the f1.4, etc., etc. So, and really at $400, it is a true bargain. Fantastic lens, and I love shooting with it. The autofocus is fast. It's great as a video lens. It's fast focusing as a video lens. And the color saturation and everything. I mean, the Zion shots were just absolutely all I could wish for. And they're straight out of camera, too. So, all right, that's my review of the 16 millimeter 2.8 Fuji lens, and for APS-C. Highly, highly recommended. It's a go-to lens, and it's one of the best lenses that Fuji makes. And that's saying something, because most of Fuji lenses are the best in the business. So it's all metal. It's just a beautiful lens. So I hope that was helpful for somebody, and I appreciate it. And we'll catch you guys later. All right, have a good one. Bye.